Hey everyone, welcome to the Oasis Podcast. I'm your host, Miss AJ. Thanks for tuning in. An oasis is something that provides refuge, relief, or a pleasant contrast, and that is exactly what you will find tuning into the Oasis Podcast. This is a space where I and special guests will be cultivating intentional and honest conversations about life's journey. Subscribe everywhere you listen to podcasts and watch us on YouTube now.
Hey y'all, and welcome back to the Oasis Podcast. Thank you for joining us again and another one. You see, I am committed, y'all, and I am really trying to churn these episodes out because I owe y'all this story. And so I hope you all have been enjoying the episodes I've been releasing. Well, I know you have because you've been messaging me and leaving comments and such, and so I'm grateful for that. I'm so grateful for everyone who continues to support this podcast as it goes through its ebbs and flows, its ups and its downs. I truly appreciate you all. And just a little heads up, next week will be Thanksgiving. Whether you celebrate it or not, we know this is the colonizers' holiday, but it's a time to spend time with family, friends, loved ones, and to eat some good food, hopefully. So I hope you guys enjoy that, and I will also be off enjoying that myself, and so there won't be an episode next week, but there definitely will be one top of December. I am planning to and committed to churning out these episodes up until the end of the year, and fingers crossed that January in 2025 brings just as much focus and episodes for you all to indulge in and enjoy. Keep those comments coming. Please do subscribe, comment, like, share, follow, all the things for the podcast. I truly do appreciate all the love and support that you all give me. So today's episode is continuing the story of coming home from the hospital and just what that is and feels like. I'm going to give this its own light and then talk about the postpartum journey in the next episode, because I think the postpartum journey itself is long. And I don't want to cram everything all into one episode. And so I'm just going to break that apart because I think it's important to do so. And also for me to sit in both of those experiences separately. These episodes honestly have been very therapeutic, and I didn't expect it to be so much so. It was hard, like I mentioned to you all, that it took me all this time because the experience has been traumatic. I'm finally at a place where I feel good, I feel okay, and this is why I'm able to share it. And so I thought it was going to be really, prior to now, I thought it was going to be it, and it would have been too difficult for me to share. But now, recounting some of this stuff, it is a little triggering. I'm not going to act like it's not, but it's still therapeutic. It feels good to share the experience because, again, a lot of times we go through these things silently, suffering alone, and being able to be on the other side of it and to share the experience gives me hope. It shows my strength. It's doing something for me, and I'm grateful for it. And I hope it is also helping someone else out there as well. So I left off the last episode, I believe, talking about, the last episode in regards to the storyline, not the things I've learned to be true, but the birth story about getting home and my sister and nephew being at my place because they, cleaned up for me and cooked and stuff. But I'm gonna back it up a little bit because I feel like from leaving the hospital and actually getting home, I need to also talk about what that felt like. And I mentioned after giving birth, everything just felt surreal. It really did feel like outer body. I don't think I've been back into my body, and that might sound weird for those who don't have children or haven't given birth. But those of us who have, I think you'll understand. Like, I haven't felt like I've been in my body. It's only been a few months. You know what I'm saying? And my child is almost a year and a half. And so a lot of this experience felt out of body. And that whole ride, like, so you're like, all right, you're going home. So you're getting dressed and you get this baby ready. You're still like, whose baby is this? Right? You're like, I'm just, okay, I gotta take this baby home. Okay. And, you got this baby in a carrier and you feel like you have the most fragile little thing, even though these kids are strong, child. These kids are warriors, okay? But you got this little thing, and my baby was small, like I mentioned, and this carrier, and you just feel like everything in you just like, keep this baby safe. It's like you're floating in like this haze, but that is what your brain is focused on, keeping the baby safe. And as I mentioned, the hospital was about an hour's drive, 45 minutes to an hour drive from where I lived. And so that ride felt like forever, And meanwhile, that baby ain't got a care in the world. She was snuggled up warm, sleeping, but sitting in the back seat with the baby, just being happy to be out the hospital. Because, Lord, I was so happy to be out the hospital. And just like, oh, okay, right? Like having this feeling of like, all right, I can get back to life. That was a lie. But, being able to just sit in the back seat and just look at the thing you created. It was just like, oh my goodness, right? I'm trying to remember how I felt physically. Yeah, the bumps and lumps didn't feel good. But at the same time, I still had this feeling of relief, By this point, not everybody, so I can't say you as in, a general statement, but I already, like, my, stomach already went down a pretty good amount. They typically ask you to, like, bind your stomach if you want to, I did, because it just makes you feel better. Like, now that baby is gone, it feels like this big old void is there. So it makes you feel stable. And so you feel better with it. So I did that. But your insides and your organs are still all over the place, essentially. I have not adjusted yet, but I'll talk more about that in the postpartum piece. But yeah, it helps you feel together. Like, it helps you feel, more intact if you have the bind on. And so, like, you still feel just out of sorts, but more relief, if that makes sense. Definitely in the haze. I definitely was in a haze. And just feeling like, okay, I gotta get myself and this baby home in one piece. And that was pretty much the focus on the ride. Like, getting home with this human being, it was just strange. It's like you have this time to prepare. As a new mother, you deserve to focus on bonding with your baby and healing your body. Our compassionate postpartum doula services provides you with the support and care you need. From newborn care to light household chores, our doulas will allow you to rest, recover, and enjoy the precious moments with your little one. Benefits of our postpartum doula services are personalized care tailored to your specific needs, relief from household chores and newborn care, emotional support and guidance, increased bonding time with your baby. Experience the gift of rest and support with postpartum doula services at AJO Consulting Services now. But you still don't feel prepared. I had all the things, and it just didn't, I don't know. It just still felt so strange. And I've taken care of babies. I've taken care of newborns. I've, like I said, been in villages, but it definitely is a different experience when it's just you. Oh, and walking just felt weird. Like, it just felt weird just walking, especially now not having that pressure of the baby, but you still felt off. Like, you just still felt out of sorts. So I do remember that. And just doing little things, not a lot of stuff, just made you feel tired. At least I felt tired. Like, walking from the car to get upstairs to my apartment, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm ready to lay down. And it was an experience for sure. So, as mentioned, prior to giving birth, I instilled some boundaries. And so the grandparents were allowed to visit the baby in the hospital, right? But it was told to everybody, there will be no visits. Please do not show up, because hell to the no. But there won't be no visits for at least a week. We want to get settled as a unit, adjusting to this child. And I didn't want people in my house. I don't like people in my house, period. Let's just be clear. It's a no for me, dog. I'm very selective who comes to my house to begin with. But I don't want a slew of people in my house just having to entertain. And I don't want a whole bunch of people in my baby's face. It's still COVID. And I have been and still very much so that parent that's like, wear a mask. Yeah. You want to see the baby? Cool. Wear a mask. And I'm grateful that I did that. And I'll talk about that a little more, because I tell you one thing, in this almost year and a half she's been alive, she has not been sick often at all. And I've heard of other people's kids who constantly were getting sick, or constantly in the ER, in the hospital. And so I feel no way about it. I feel no way about that, because the RSVs and the COVIDs and just the flu and all these things, a sick baby is a terrible time. And God forbid both of y'all sick now, so now you still got to take care of somebody else. It's terrible. It feels terrible. And as much as I could reduce it, that's what I did. And I did. Granted, we all need the quote unquote germs, right, for our bodies to be strong and to gain immunity, and I understand that. But we don't need all them motherfuckers. Okay? All right. I digress. We'll talk about that a different time. But I had put the boundaries in. So the first few days, so I'm gonna be specific, because of course this ride doesn't stay calm very long. I think it was like good 2 days. It was pretty chill. And so, as I mentioned, I had a birthing doula and postpartum doulas. And so they were, I'm trying to remember, they were scheduled to come in, I think that first week that we were home. I can't remember the exact day, or that those details a little fuzzy, and also because of what happens next, but I'll explain. But that was the only visits we're going to have, right? The postpartum doula was going to come in to assist, essentially. And this honestly was mainly, a majority of it was mainly for my child's father at the time, because he ain't never dealt with a baby or a newborn ever. So I also knew I wasn't going to have the patience to be recovering, probably exhausted, dealing with the newborn, and then trying to teach people how to do stuff. I'm honest and I'm mindful and I know these things. And so I'm like, I'd rather pay for somebody to help. And so that was what their purpose was going to be. Come in, teach them, in real time, because we did stuff during pregnancy, but it's different doing something on a doll or whatever versus on a real baby. So we'll come in, teach them how to change diapers, do XYZ, yada yada, right? And also for them to come in and give us a break as needed. So the postpartum visits were spread out. Again, I highly recommend it, especially, because I am a postpartum doula. This time is very important for the healing and the rest. And so if you can have the assistance, get it. If you don't have it in your village and you can pay for it, do it because you need it, right? And they help with everything. So just a little snippet of kind of what postpartum doulas do. They're here for of course, the family, the mother, the birthing individual, and to assist with the baby in whatever capacity you want, right? And that could be as soon as that doula come in, you hand the baby over and you go take a nap. They'll do that. All they'll do is hold that baby for you, change them, do whatever the baby needs so that you can get some rest. Postpartum doulas, they clean up for you. They will tidy up for you as well. They'll cook for you. If you need food, they can do some light cooking. They can go grocery shopping. Like, they're there to relieve the load that would possibly be on you, washing clothes, etc. Because you need to be resting at this time. You need to be just focused on yourself and your healing and that baby. And sometimes not the baby, just yourself, And so I think I strongly suggest, if you don't have that strong village, get a doula. Maybe you will have a strong village at first, but then that dwindles, because it will. Postpartum doula. You can get a postpartum doula up until like a year or more after you have a baby, to be honest. There's long-term doula services as well. So look into it, as I previously said before. So for us, we wanted the doula to come in initially, I think that first week, and then we was going to spread out the other visits. And that was essentially the plan. But as we all know, when we make plans, God definitely laughs at us. Okay. So people did respect the boundaries. Of course, they called. Well, not so much called, like text and stuff to check in. I mean, they did call to check in and things of that nature. My mother and my sister, thank God for them, because they were huge piece of making sure I had food and meals. Like, my sister pre-cooked stuff for me, and they would continuously and constantly just send over food and just make sure that, in that regard, we were good for sure, which I'm so grateful for. And then, so a big piece is, this kind of goes into the postpartum piece, but I still consider this coming home. It's like settling into that newness, right? Because it's like, now it's literally a couple of days, you're back in your space with this new human being. And again, that could look different because your baby could be different. Most often around this time, babies, all they really do is sleep, if you're lucky, because that ain't always the case. When I was in the postpartum suite at the hospital right after giving birth, right next door, out the gate, this lady's baby screamed all night. Like, oh my God, I felt bad for her. Them. Jeez, that baby just yelling, screaming, crying all night. So you might have one of those. You never know. Thank God. Now, my baby, she was honestly a pretty smooth baby. There were, of course, moments where she didn't want to sleep and things like that. And I'm not talking about within the first 2 days, but throughout the newborn first year, she was pretty good. Like, yeah, she was pretty good. And I'm making up for it in toddlerhood, but that's another story. But she wasn't really a crier. If she fussed, know that something was going on, but she was pretty chill, Thank God for that. Of course, like I said, there was moments and nights where that sis didn't want to go to sleep, and they have these growth spurts and they have, regressions and all this stuff, and so you ride those things out. But outside of those moments, chill. She was a rider, bro. Like, man, like, yeah. She was my little rider. I ain't gonna hold you. She still is. But in those moments, I'm so grateful that I didn't have a baby that cried a lot, because I did have friends who babies cried a lot. You know what I mean? And I don't know how I would have handled that, to be honest. So thank you, God, because thank you. So you are settling into just now having an extra person to remember to take care of, right? Especially if your baby's quiet, so you don't want to forget, oh yeah, this baby's here, I gotta check in. Granted, that instinct does kick in, at least for the birthing person. And so you are very in tune. Your ears, your mind, your brain chemistry literally changes to be super in tune to your baby's needs. Sometimes it feels telepathic. I'm not even gonna lie to you. There's so many instances with things. There were no noise, no indication. I could be in sleep and something's like, get up and check on the baby. And I'll get up and check on the baby, and she has a need. There was something going on with her. So hopefully you have that and it kicks in, but that may not always be the case, and it may not happen right away. And so that might be something that's learned. So you have to be mindful, like, oh, there's another person here that I gotta take care of, and I gotta take care of myself. And then there's like adjustments you have to make, because again, if you're breastfeeding or bottle feeding, there's that. The boobs, and we're going to talk about breastfeeding, Lord. The boobs filling up with milk and making sure you're feeding the baby, and them latching on, and the uncomfortability of it all. And so that is a shift, right? You're thinking you're going to go home, I'm going to get to rest, or yada, yada, yada. Not exactly. No. If you're lucky, like I said, and blessed, and you have the proper partner and village, yeah, you'll probably, hopefully, get a good majority of the rest and that smooth transition in. But everyone doesn't have that, and it's still an adjustment either way. Either way, your body is changing and shifting, your brain chemistry, just how you do your daily things, all that stuff is shifting, and so you have to adjust appropriately. So now we're like 2 days post being home. 2 days post being home, and we go see, I think by the third day, we are scheduled to see her pediatrician, because that is what you have to do after giving birth. They release you, but you have to go see a doctor within that first few days of life for the child, while being earthside for the child. And so, they check them up, just make sure they're, looking good, nothing is off. If you didn't give certain vaccines or such at the hospital, you can decide to do so at that visit. They'll weigh the baby again and do certain things, and give you the, okay, baby's good, or give you suggestions, essentially. But we had the visit, everything was fine, and I was grateful and lucky because her doctor is like literally like 2 blocks away, and great doctor, love her, she's awesome, she's a Black Haitian woman, so that makes me feel great. And she's close, like I said, so, and she's close, but also you can text whenever, and she's really responsive and really just an awesome doctor. So I was lucky in that regard, because she got great reviews and such, and just happened to be that close, so everything worked out really well, and so I'm grateful for that. And so they encourage you after you give birth and stuff, like rest, of course, but of course, like move around if you can, depending on if you had a C-section or natural birth or not, right? That might be limited, but some type of movement is recommended. And so on this particular day, I feel like it might have been after her doctor's appointment, that I decided, so let me backtrack a little bit also. I remember I mentioned that I got my placenta sent to, a specialist, a person who handles placentas, and gotten my placenta used for a number of things. So that included, she made an imprint, like a picture, I guess you can say, a painting, I don't know, I guess it would be considered a painting of the placenta, so it looks like the tree of life. It's actually really beautiful, something that I will pass on to my daughter. It's like in these beautiful colors. I got the placenta encapsulated into pills. I also got it put into a balm and a tincture. I never could say that word right, but I got several things utilized. Now, some people might think that's gross. Cool, that's fine. Other people may understand it and, think that's cool. And I personally, like I said, didn't want to leave my placenta in the hospital because they get mucho money off of that. I wanted it to be a piece of me. I want that piece of me and my daughter to remain with us. And so that's what I chose to do with it. Now, I feel like I'm going to do an episode on this topic alone. And so I'm giving this tidbit of information purposefully, and I'll probably tie back into it later. Maybe during that episode. I'm not going to do it right now. But what I will talk about is it's in May. May is when the temperature is, starting to get pretty decent. And it's a decent day. Like, all right, take a nice little walk, get some fresh air for myself, the baby, and, just do a little family trip around the block, around the neighborhood. And so I'm going on this walk. I go on the walk, and again, you feel a little off, a little tired. But again, that's just how it's been, right? These past few days. And I've never given birth, so I don't know how I'm supposed to feel. Now, a piece that I also want to add is that, and I kind of forgot to add, talking about the pregnancy piece, is I am an individual that's always had pretty low blood pressure. And that had to do with lifestyle, that had to do with activity levels. I was an athlete, in my youth and my body. I'm pretty athletic. And so blood pressure tends to be lower, but healthily low, right? I'm good. Not like it's an issue or alarming. So that was something that I was all told to monitor, and in doing my research and knowing how the healthcare takes care of Black women, or the lack of care for Black women, I always need to make sure that's a thing that I paid attention to. And so throughout my pregnancy, I would take my blood pressure normally. Just wake up, do it, whatever, just to make sure things are cool. Always had good blood pressure. Always low, normal low. Even when I was pregnant, it didn't shift much. Awesome. Wonderful. And I mentioned to y'all, when I was giving birth, my blood pressure spiked once or twice. Not huge spikes, but higher than my normal. And I, continued to, I don't know if I did continue to do so after birth. Or maybe I did, maybe not every single day, but go on this walk and I just feel off. I can't exactly tell you guys what made me feel off, but if you know yourself, you just know something doesn't feel right. So on this walk, I felt like I was kind of struggling a little bit, right? And I can't say I was super dizzy or anything. My head just felt off. It wasn't a dizzy feeling. It wasn't necessarily a feeling that I'm familiar with either. But I'm something doesn't feel right. So cut the walk a little bit short. Head home. Go home. That inner voice is check your blood pressure. Get home. Take my blood pressure. And my blood pressure is high. I feel like it was, when I initially took it, it was in the 150 something or 160 something. I've never seen numbers like that over I don't know. It was under, the bottom number was under 100, but it was a high number that I've never seen. I was like, oh shit. Now I'm panicked, right? Now you're scared. And I know what this means. I know what this can indicate. And then my brain is racing. Shit, what do I do? You might be wondering, what the hell you mean? What do you do, girl? Go to the hospital, call your doctor. And I knew to do these things, but also there's a part of your brain that's but no, I don't want to, because I don't want them to tell me what I know is happening, right? And Jesus, you are put in a situation, again, that's why I say you never know what you're gonna do until you're put in a situation, because it's if it was a friend who told you this, you'd be like, girl, but you better da-da-da-da-da, right? But when it's you, so much things are going through your head, because the main thing was, shit, I'm gonna have to go to the hospital. And I told you I don't like hospitals. I'm like, shit. And I've already been in the hospital several times during pregnancy, like I mentioned. And then I'm like, shit, I'm gonna have to leave my baby. And that was the main thing. I'm gonna have to leave my baby. So what I decided to do is I think I called my midwives first. I called my midwives. Yeah, I think I called my midwives. I finally was like, all right, let me just call them. I called them and they're like, you know what? They asked me if I'm feeling other symptoms and I wasn't, right? I just felt off, but not like, it's been like the typical preeclampsia symptoms, because that's what I was experiencing. I didn't feel those things outside of I just felt off, like my head wasn't hurting or any other thing like that. I wasn't short of breath or anything like that. And my blood pressure reading. That's literally the only two things that happened, right? So they asked me the questions. They're like, based on this information, I think you should go to the hospital, right? Just go to the ER. I'm like, fuck. Okay, I get off the phone with them. And so I ended up calling my friend. She's an RN. So she comes over because I'm like, hey, like I might have to go to the hospital. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but can you watch the baby for me? If I was going to have anybody watch the baby, it would be her because she's an RN, her and my cousin. So it was going to be one or the other. My cousin is typically busy. It's hard to catch her. So I said, let me call somebody that I'm sure is, will be of assistance. And she lives closer too. So I hit her up. She came over and she then was like, all right, let me take your pressure for you. I was like, maybe I ain't do it right. Right? Hopefully. She takes it and it's a little bit lower, but it's still high. It's still high. Not okay high, right? And so I ain't gonna hold you, y'all. I was definitely like, I ain't going. No, because I'm not leaving my baby. I just had this baby. I'm gonna leave no, I'm not going. Because I don't know, because these hospital visits be mad long. Nothing in my brain was like, they're gonna keep me. It's a big deal. Like, I don't know what I thought was gonna happen. But I'm like, I don't want to leave her and I'm going to be there forever. Like, what the hell? Granted, at this point, she was still taking formula. And I say still because I'm going to explain that later. But she had, like, not when, like, some people may not know, but when you leave the hospital, if you are giving your child formula, they have formula that you can take with you. So I had those bottles still, and so it's like, even though she was still breastfeeding as well, so she would be fed, it should be okay. But like at that point, your brain is just like, I don't want to leave my baby. I don't want to leave my baby. I'm not leaving my baby. I don't want to leave my baby. That's all I kept thinking, and my heart just sunk into my stomach, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't want to leave my baby. She just looked at me, was like, just be safe. Rather be safe than sorry. Just go. And if anything, if they send you home, they just send you home. Okay, you right. Ooh, I'm getting emotional. If I didn't listen to her, I probably would not even be here. She literally saved my life. She literally saved my life. And this is why it's important who you have around you, who you choose to be in your village. She literally saved my life. Because I wasn't going to go. I swear I wasn't going to go to that hospital. And who knows what had happened. I would have died. I would have seized. Oh. And so, get ready. I go. My heart is just like, oh my God, I don't want to leave my baby. I don't want to leave my baby, but I'm okay. All right, we're going to go. Drive out there, get out there. Again, I still feel off. Like I'm walking and I feel just off, but I feel for the most part okay. I just feel like I don't feel like myself. And get to the hospital, get to the ER. And again, what I like about the connection they had with the hospital is when you go in and you tell them, hey, I just had a baby, like they gave you a level of treatment preferentially, and I'm grateful for that, right? I went all the way back. I didn't go to a local hospital, and I'm not gonna mention which hospital's close by and why not, but I drove all the way back to the city. And again, happy that I did, because once you like, oh, you were here the other day and you had a baby. All right, let's go. And so they turned me through quickly. They took my blood pressure again. And that shit was even higher. Granted, I was stressed because I was afraid, right? They're like, okay, you know what? Fine. They get me through triage. They put me like into a room in the ER to monitor me. They hooked me up to all the things. Y'all, so I'm back there in the bed. Crazy, because there's another lady sharing the space with me who also just had a baby, maybe a day later than I did, who's also there for postpartum preeclampsia. Like, oh, that's crazy. I'm still not registering though the severity of everything. I'm just more stuck on like, okay, let's just hurry up so I can go home. And then there is they have the attending comes. Not attending, I think it's a nurse comes first. They check your vitals and they're checking my numbers. Like, they're looking at my numbers and they keep asking me. They're like, they didn't say yo, but they're like, do you feel okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Like, I feel okay. They're like, what are you feeling? I was like, I don't feel much of nothing. They're like, do you feel this? Do you feel that? I was like, I was like, I just feel a little off, but I'm like, I don't feel those things, baby. My blood pressure was the top number was almost at 200. It was like a 190 something, and the bottom number was was at 100 or over 100. Now, those of you who are in the medical field know this shit is wild. Those of you who are not familiar, normal blood pressure should be 120 and under for the top number, and I believe the bottom number should be under 80 or under 70. Both my numbers were over 100 and the top was almost at 200. When I tell you the people in the hospital was shocked that I was just okay, because those are numbers to seize, like for you to have a seizure. Those are numbers for you to be like feeling crazy symptoms. And this right here is another reason why you, one, should not have a baby just for the sake of. Don't have a baby for just anybody. Don't put yourself through this if you don't truly want to, because there's a thin line between life and death. I could have easily died with those numbers. If it wasn't for my friend, I might have died, because I would not have gone to the hospital. And the thought of that, in real time, I didn't process it that way. But in hindsight, I've cried so many times about that. So many times. God, if y'all don't remember, almost didn't meet my daughter because of the cord being around her neck. And then mere days after giving birth to her, I almost died myself. And so this is why it's been a very hard time to come on and talk about this, because I really had to process it. It took me a long time to recognize and realize and then process. And then just to sit in the gratitude that God had blessed me and my daughter. And to experience some of the things that I have experienced since in postpartum, after giving birth, after having these experiences with people that you thought was going to be there for you and ride for you. It made this experience very hard, and that's why it's so hard to share, because it was traumatic. It triggered me so bad. But I'm still here. Thank you, God. My baby girl is still here, stronger than ever, baby. Stronger than ever. So I ended up, of course, having to be admitted, which literally I was so pissed, so pissed. And I know that sounds crazy, but like I said, in the moment, I'm not a health professional in that way. I'm not registering the severity of this, but I'm mad, like, damn, I'm gonna be away from my baby. And I, of course, in hindsight, grateful, but I ended up being there for like 2.5 days, almost 3 days, because they had to give me magnesium. I forget magnesium what, but magnesium is what they use to treat postpartum preeclampsia. And I'll probably go into a little more detail about this later, so for the sake of not making this episode super long, I was in the hospital for 3 days, and almost 3 days. A very tearful 3 days, because they kept saying, oh, another X amount of hours, you probably go home later today or something, and it kept extending and extending because of them finding the right treatment for me and the baby, because I was breastfeeding. And so when you breastfeed, you cannot take anything because you don't want it to go into the baby system. And so that was something that the team had to make sure they were giving me the right treatments, and then see how I responded to the treatments, and constantly checking my numbers. And honestly, I was so emotional and so tearful. And the mere thought of having to take my blood pressure would spike my blood pressure. You know what I'm saying? Like, even now, it sometimes feel that way when I have to take my blood pressure. I'm just like so scared to see what's going to be on the monitor. And it takes me, time to calm down, to be like, chill out, you're gonna be fine. Thank God now I have been, and I am fine, but it's always now, because I've experienced this the one time, this is something that can follow me throughout my life. And that's another reason, don't play these games for other people, y'all. Don't get yourself into this if you don't want it for yourself. Don't have a baby for anything, anybody, that if it's not for you, not only is it life or death, but you can come out of this with chronic or long-term illnesses or disorders. Okay? It's not a game. I know women who, after giving birth, healthy before, after giving birth, guess what? They have autoimmune disease now. And yes, birth can trigger that. Having a child can do that. And now, because I've never had an issue with blood pressure in my life, ever. I now, because I've experienced this postpartum, 1, it increases my risk if I ever get pregnant again, that I'm going to have it now. 2, if I don't ever get pregnant, but just because I've had experienced this, it increases my risk of other diseases, of other things that can impact my health. So this ain't a game. This is real. And just because you may get over the hump of it after, birth, and you deal with it, you take your medications and you get through the treatment, doesn't mean that it's not something that can follow you. And again, for the sake of this episode, I'm not going to go into the details of it, but I will dedicate an episode to that postpartum preeclampsia, because I think too many of us don't even know that it can happen, that it exists, because we talk about preeclampsia when you're pregnant, but postpartum preeclampsia is a real thing that kills women every day. And I will dedicate an episode to that. But for now, just to wrap up this piece of it, so I'm there for like about 2.5, it's almost 3 days, because I leave later in the day, I think the 3rd day, and I'm so happy to go home. Granted, my experience in the hospital in itself was okay, but you know what, I'm not even going to touch on that, because that's, again, I'm not sure how much I want to share about other pieces of this experience, so I'm going to focus on my experience alone in regards to this journey, and not necessarily the external pieces of it. For now, again, I might share it. Still haven't decided, but getting home and being with my baby, oh my God, like, I was so happy to be back home and to have that little munchkin. And she was fine, you know. Thank you, God, for... Oh, I'm about to get emotional again. Your village. And I'm telling you, you know who's there for you when you need them. And I told y'all earlier in another episode about, what is it? It's birth, death. When you get married is when you see who's really there for you. And my sister, my cousin, my sister friend, they were the ones that I reached out to. I didn't even tell the grandparents because remember what I said, protect your peace? Because they would. Are you feeling overwhelmed by the demands of life? Motherhood? At AJO Consulting Services, LLC, we offer comprehensive wellness services that include personalized coaching, doula care, consulting, and personal and professional development to help you navigate this beautiful yet challenging phase of life. Our services are designed to support individuals and communities, especially women, birthing people, and families of color, in creating a more joyful and stress-free experience. From family planning to postpartum care, we provide the tools and resources you need to thrive. Let AJO Consulting Services help you prioritize your well-being and create a healthier, happier future for yourself and your family. It stressed me out, and they would have made things it was a big deal, period. But they would have made it an enormous thing, and I didn't have the capacity. I didn't have the bandwidth for that. So we kept it real hush, just kept it just in the loop of, those three people, and they literally rotated in and out, took shifts to take care of my baby. I'm grateful for y'all. Thank you. I know I've said it before, but I'm grateful for y'all. And I miss my baby, but I knew she was safe. And they would give me updates, of course, and pictures and videos and and I knew she was safe with them. And I know they took really good care of her. And got home and she was fine, Of course, I'm thinking in my head, she's gonna forget who I am. She's not gonna know who I am. She does. She didn't. And this ties into more of the postpartum piece, but the postpartum anxiety and all kind of stuff. But that was the first, and as of now, only time I've ever been away from my daughter ever overnight like that for that period of time. I truly, at this point, have no desire to be away from her for that stretch of time. And it may be because of that experience. Or, that's just what it is now because she's so young. I don't know. But, yeah, I don't ever want to feel that again. And that's so hard. It's so tough. Not being able to see her and hold her during that time. Yeah, it's like, in hindsight, you're like, oh, it wasn't that long, but it felt like an eternity. It really felt like an eternity. Whew. So, that's the coming home story. Y'all thought it was gonna be all fluffy and beautiful, huh? Oh, y'all have no idea. I've been through it, Lord. And I'm, like I said, there's so many other pieces that I'm not included. And I'm grateful that I'm here and I'm able to even tell you this story. The next episode, I will touch on my postpartum journey thus far. That will probably be broken up into more pieces because it's a long one, but I will give you as much as I possibly can. Bye.
Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Oasis Podcast. I hope you were able to find something that resonated with you on your journey. Don't forget to subscribe anywhere you listen to podcasts and YouTube. Rate us and leave us a review and comment on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, and YouTube. Share your favorite episode and like us on Instagram and Facebook. If you have any questions, comments, want to be a guest, or any show ideas, contact us at ajaysoasis@gmail.com. That's AAYJAYSOASIS@gmail.com, or direct message us on Instagram and Facebook.